Okay. First, I want to say thank you to everybody for being here. I mean, we're busy people, and we use our time wisely, and it's very much appreciated that people take the time to use their time to do this. I think our committee does great. I think our whole advisory board does great work, and I really want to thank everybody for being a part of this. I'm excited. I think we have a great board. And so, yeah, I just want to acknowledge everybody's work on being on the board.
I like to say I come for the air conditioning.
Do you? Well, for whatever reason, whatever works for you. That's fine. John is not here today because he extended his stay in Hawaii. He has a daughter who went through some medical issues, and she surprised him by going out to visit, and so they extended their stay, so they're all together out there.
It's Melissa.
Yep. And so, he just said he'd be back shortly, but he wouldn't make the meeting, so he apologizes. Roll call. Got it? Is everybody here but Marta? I was hoping Marta would be here.
Yeah, I hope so Marta can be next meeting.
Yeah.
So I talked to her yesterday, and she said that I asked her if she wants that I go and pick her up to bring here, and she said that she still have good balance and that it's kind of unsafe.
Yeah.
But she's getting better.
So I have a question. Is there any way that we can do Zoom so that those people that aren't able to attend maybe could watch it from Zoom?
I mean, she could still, well, I guess live. I don't know. I'll have to look into that.
We do have
For future reference.
We have a digital live stream specialist that helps with those kinds of meetings, Dallas Stiles. So
Okay.
if it's something you're interested in, he'll do that for city council. If somebody can't make it to city council, he'll create a Zoom meeting to
Right.
help. Yeah.
Okay, at least they'd have the option
Doesn't have the option.
of coming in. Yeah, I did speak to her, and she said she was doing fine, getting better, but still tired, and she was hoping to be able to make this one, but I told her not to push it, so.
Yeah.
But she did sound good, so. I'd like to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Eric? Arlene? Public invited to be heard. Is there any public? Okay. Approval of previous month's minutes. Did everybody get a chance to read the minutes from last month? Anybody have any questions, additions, corrections?
I actually found them to be, I found them okay, so I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Second, anybody? Okay. Minutes are, do we, a vote, I'm sorry, a vote to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. You'll have to excuse me, I had cataract surgery done, so I'm kind of uneven in my focus, but that's all right. I'm just enlarging everything. New business. Filling? Katie. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Well. This is Katie Fallon, everybody. And she is with Ride Longmont. So,
Katie.
Haley, I am sorry. Like I said, I can't read my computer. I'm going to try to enlarge that, but I'll do that on my own. Okay, so Kaylee, why don't you go ahead with the first presentation and let us know what you want to talk about as far as...
We're gonna go. I sent out the order to everybody. It might look a little different, but we're gonna start.
Sandy.
We're gonna go Sandy first.
Oh, okay, Sandy, I'm so sorry. This is Sandy Cedar, everybody, and she's going to update us on the legislation going on that the city is involved with, and she'll give us a brief overview of what's coming up, what we need to know about, especially as far as seniors. So.
Thank you, I appreciate that. That'll be
It's
a
okay.
minute to get going as well. I'm a huge Kaylee fan, by the way. Ride Longmont is just an amazing service, and so I've been kind of immersed in it this week. It's been fun. Yeah, very good. So as she mentioned, my name is Sandy Cedar. I'm Assistant City Manager, which means that I run about a third of the city approximately. But one of my jobs is to serve as the legislative liaison for the City Council to the State House, to our state legislators. So every year, starting in January and ending in May, I read all of the bills that come out. I send them to people so that they can comment on them. And this year, I paid special attention to issues that may affect seniors, because you had asked me to last year, and so sent those to Ronnie, who commented, and I think several of them came to the board for position.
Mhm.
So I'm here to update the board on those positions, what happened to those bills, but also I can talk just generally about what happened during the session. Okay, so first of all, there were 4 bills that you all took a position on this last year. One of them was House Bill 1111, which was expanding the homestead exemptions. I think one of the things that we saw on the state side this year was some serious budget issues. And so anything that had a fiscal note almost didn't pass. Like, it was really tough for things that had a fiscal note to pass. And that was the case in this one. Expanding the homestead exemptions, there we go, ended up being postponed indefinitely in the Budget Committee and the Appropriations Committee, likely due to the fact that it had a fiscal note to it.
So the existing way it's structured is still
the same. Yep, it's still the same. It's just it's not an expansion. The expansion bill.
So it was like 10 years in your
right.
In the same home?
You get it in the same
You
home.
can't carry it with
Yes.
you. Yeah.
and you can't carry it over.
Yeah.
You can't carry it over. Yeah, so the way that it is, nothing changed. We didn't lose any ground in that arena, but didn't gain any either. So, yeah. The second one, House Concurrent Resolution 25-1001, which was the senior property tax exemption portability. So the idea that you could move that tax exemption also did fail in the end. I think for the same reason. I think the fiscal note on it probably killed it. In fact, that's what killed most bills in this last session. Yeah. The third one that you took a position on was Senate Bill 25013, which is the senior housing income tax credit extension. That never even made it out of the Senate committee. It wasn't killed on the floor, like nobody actually took action against it, but it didn't pass by the time the legislature adjourned sine die in May. So what that means is that any legislation that didn't make it through the full process by the end just dies on the floor, so to speak. And so that one, it didn't seem like there was opposition, and the fiscal note didn't even seem to drive any conversation. It just didn't make it through the process by the end. So I think it was, again, like I said, I think it was a very tough budget season for the state this year. And then the last one, which was Senate Bill 25-1184, which was community-based continuing care for seniors. Both the Senate and the House had passed that bill when they adjourned sine die. So the governor had 30 days to decide whether he was going to pass it or not pass it, and he decided to pass it. So it's now an act. So that bill actually passed. So that's, I hate to say that 25% is a good success rate, but it is in the legislature when you think about the fact that there are usually about 800 bills that are introduced and only a couple of hundred of them actually pass through. So that's about average, I would say. So that one did pass and is now an act.
Cindy, what exactly is the bill to pass?
That particular bill?
Right.
Let me pull that one up for you. I've got all my stuff going here. And I'd be happy to send the final act to Ronnie if he wants to forward it to you all so that you can take a look at it.
Well, maybe you could just do that instead of taking the time to look it up.
I would be happy to.
Okay?
Yeah, okay. Generally, I would say that at the State House, when there's no money, then what happens is the state legislators often will then turn towards preemption of local authority. Like, if we can't make things happen because we don't have any money, we'll see if we can force the localities to do so. So we saw all sorts of bills this year, which is not usual, but we saw all sorts of bills this year that was really edging away at home rule authority, both in land use and like building inspection, and they wanted to all of a sudden regulate like food trucks and all sorts of stuff that your city council currently regulates. So it was kind of an odd, I felt like kind of a broken record every time I came to city council with different bills. It was kind of like, here's another opportunity where they're trying to give us an unfunded mandate. So an unfunded mandate is one in which they tell you, cities, you have to carry this out, but we're not going to give you any money to do so. You just have to do it. And that did happen in several cases. A few cases, though, still we were able to prevail. One area of the city council's interest, the city council's, their priorities are housing and transportation, early care and education, equity, sustainability. I said transportation, right? I'll say it twice since Kaylee's here. But certainly the affordable housing piece is one that the council has taken up and kind of dueled back and forth with the state. You may notice that there's been several cities that have sued the governor for one of the bills that passed in 2024, House Bill 1313, that really required particular land use decisions that the state made instead of the localities. It's kind of, it's been sort of forbidden ground for the state for lots of years to try to make land use decisions in our community. I mean, I think our belief is that our local officials should be doing that work, and your city council should be determining what happens with land use in your community. But this bill exempted that and overrode that and required particular housing units. Longmont was in a weird position with this bill because we were already doing all the things that the state said we had to do, but we still don't want them to tell us to do it, So it got into a weird position. So the city council actually opposed that bill that everybody is now suing over, but we're not part of the lawsuit partially because we're already doing the stuff that the governor wanted us to do. So it's it ends up being an odd little, that's the fun of legislation. But one other bill, and I would certainly invite Councilmember Popkin to speak on also, that came through that was dealing with housing is a construction defects bill. So I think a lot of times people say, well, why don't we have condos in Longmont? Like, why aren't there condos for sale, kinds of things like that? And the development community has said that because of our laws around construction defects, that it makes it very risky to make this kind of investment. And the current construction defects laws basically are saying that, if you buy this condo and you and all of your neighbors decide that there was a defect, even like 10 years later, you can sue the construction manufacturers for those defects. And so the fact that that is such a long period of time, the damages can be extremely severe. That makes it not a great investment for people who want to construct condo housing. So this year there was a compromise bill. There was a couple compromise bills that were thrown out there that would shorten the time, kind of make it so that it took more people to sue in order to make a lawsuit actually viable for construction defects. And that bill did pass. And so we're hopeful that that will help to incent our construction community to actually start to build for sale condos. And Councilmember Popkin actually testified in support of the bill on behalf of the council. So
actually, technically, it was in my individual capacity because we didn't have we didn't have the timing right to get council to support it in between the hearing and that. But I'll just add the other layer to that is it's not just the development community. It's how their insurance, it's how the developer's insurance industry reacts to this legislation. So if they don't deem this enough of a liability risk, lowering the liability risk from the insurance side of things, then they're not going to change the insurance rates that they give the developer, which is not going to then change isn't going to change the risk calculus. So we're still waiting to see how the insurance industry reacts to the change of the state law to then see how developers react to the insurance piece of this. But that's the layer of this, and this is at least a meaningful step, and so we're hoping the insurance industry reacts accordingly. But that really was, when you look at the two major demographics that are trying to get into some type of a condo or some kind of, it's senior citizens, and it's my age folks too, people in 25 to 40 who are trying to, young couples, young families trying to get into that space, and then folks who are either trying to downsize or just kind of have age in place. So there's such a need for that, but that's been one of the bigger hurdles at the state policy level.
Yeah, so it'll take a little while to see whether this makes a difference because, as you said, it's going to be based on the insurance company. And thank you for the correction. I'd forgotten me.
Oh.
Hey, can you call and testify on this thing tomorrow?
Yeah, I think that's basically how that went.
Yeah.
So does that apply to townhomes as well, or just condos?
Townhomes as well.
Townhomes,
yeah.
okay.
All of those things that look like
Are
apartments that
attached.
are for sale attached housing are
Okay.
kind of
Yeah,
where that.
they were still built. So again, some for sale townhomes were being built,
Mhm.
but not that many. And so you have more of the townhomes that have been built more recently here are for rent, not for sale, and that was mostly because of that.
Is that what we're seeing along there right now? If you look at the development log, is it primarily permits and applications, primarily apartment for rent?
Right now, primarily for rent. Yeah, I would say that that's very true. And
That's
I
what
think
I
part
thought
of
too.
that is
Yeah.
trying to address, I think everybody knows we have a housing issue in Colorado generally. Longmont is trying to do as much as they can, as we can, to be able to make sure that we're providing housing through the Longmont Housing Authority for folks who are low income, senior. We have new family housing that's being constructed right now, but it's such a small drop in the bucket. So being able to try to get through the permits for rent housing has definitely just been how it's been for the last couple of years. I would say that even though it really looks like, when you look around, you're like, man, there's a lot of apartments. It's still a very small percentage of our overall housing stock. It's still around 9% or so of our housing stock. Even though you look around and you think, oh my gosh, those are lots
But
and
the
lots of
concern-
apartments.
But the concern, right, is that that trend is going to continue to even accelerate because private equity corporations, right, it's a huge moneymaker. Apartments are a huge moneymaker for them.
That's true. But the market seems to be kind of settling a little bit. Homes are not spending as much time on the market as they were before, and the rental market is probably helping with that. When people are renting, then they're not buying. And so, it seems to me like things are beginning to, you said it might accelerate. There's only so much acceleration that can happen. There's only so much land that we have left within Longmont
No, I guess what I'm
boundaries.
saying is that if that doesn't bring the insurance rates down,
Yeah.
and therefore we're excluding for sale
Right.
higher density housing, multi-unit housing, it really, to grow housing, it really leaves one option, and that's apartments.
Yeah, I think you're
Right, and that's
you're right on
really
that.
how
That's
the industry
point.
responded for years, and that was largely because of that risk that they were facing. And the
Or
other
at
thing,
least that's what they've said.
yeah,
We'll see.
that's what they said. So again, we'll see if they react to it, and the other piece to what people are seeing and observing is that like a lot of apartments are being built and townhomes are being built closer to larger corridors. So the ones that you travel more, like when you're going down Hoover, you're going to see more of that because it actually makes sense for them to be built there.
That's right.
Closer to other retail, commercial services, existing roads that have that capacity, exactly. So you see that. Just going back, just to give context to what Sandy was sharing, the 2023 housing needs assessment for Longmont highlighted a gap of about 2,200 rental units even that we didn't have, that was missing from like just meeting the needs from a rental capacity. The exact number is 2,173 units for renters there, from just making rental properties more affordable. And that doesn't even begin to solve the average median home price, I think is $611,000 in Longmont now.
Is it really?
Yeah, at least it was in 2023. It might be even higher now.
That's amazing.
I would think it would be.
Yeah.
I
So
thought it was
like
in the 400s.
we kind of need more of everything, and ideally you want a better balance of everything, like so that people are building more for sale and more for rent, and so that you kind of have multiple market dynamics at play and can allow people to shift between and transition from rental to own or rent depending on what their needs are.
That's right. Yep.
And I think too what this addresses is the attainable housing issue.
It helps, yeah.
With people who want to buy something. They're younger, they're starting their professional career, they want to buy something and they can't even afford to do that. This is going to address that in a big way. And on the other side, for the people who want to downsize, it's going to give them options. They don't have to worry about letting go of the home that's draining them because they can't get one that's going to be any better.
Yeah.
This way it'll be more of a balance. So I like that. That's a good issue to be bringing, to be talking about.
That's certainly the goal.
I've got kind of an unrelated question, but you mentioned that the city priorities are transportation, housing, sustainability, equity, that sort of thing. Are these all equal?
No, the city council has prioritized those as housing first, transportation second, early care third. Understanding that we don't affect the climate ourselves, by ourselves, and so understanding that there's only a certain amount of influence we can make on, kind of the climate side of it, but also doing our actions in a way that is equitable and sustainable. So the equity, sustainability, safety is another piece of that. that piece is much more how we're doing our work as opposed to what it is that we're focused on. But their top priority has been housing and then transportation.
Do they review that periodically?
Every year.
Every year.
It hasn't changed much in the last few years. One thing that was just recently added was food security.
Thanks to this group.
Thanks to this group. Yeah, there you go. That's right. Yeah. So it does change a little bit. I would say from a staff perspective, these are big, wicked issues, right? And so they can't just be one-year issues. You can't say we're going to focus on housing for a year. Nothing will probably happen in a year. So it's important that these priorities stay somewhat stable in order to make progress on them. One new housing development that I'm really excited about is True North, which is a middle-income housing development over by the Costco. And so that's for sale. It is for the young families and kind of new professionals. It's in that range for being able, and they're for purchase houses. So it's going to be interesting. And we kind of changed some planning things, which is why our city council should control planning in our community, right? To be able to make sure that would pencil out and that we could actually make that development happen. So they've already broken ground on that, and that's
So
pretty exciting.
in regard to that True North, isn't about 25% of that sort of set aside for city or people that work here? How is that working?
Yes. So we had, and I could be a little off on the numbers, but we had about 1,000 people sign up for the interest list. Out of that, we ended up with about 300 that actually applied and about 100 that qualified.
Okay.
So now we're trying to figure out, okay, so of those, what's the priority, as far as the city housing that's there. But you're right, it was kind of the first come, first serve was for city employees.
And how many units are there actually available? Do you
I don't
know?
remember total. I feel like
170?
Yeah,
I think
that sounds
it's
about
approximately
right.
170, 180.
Yeah, so I think 40 or so will be made available for city.
I mean, the other thing that's helpful from that, and look, I can't take any credit for being part of the original House Pad True North work there, but the information we're now getting from people who are expressing interest is a great indicator of like how many people are trying to get into the attainable for sale housing market space here, or affordable housing market space here, so that we can use that as one, hopefully help some of them, and two, perhaps inform the next, a 2.0 version of that, or help say, look state, this is still the impact of your laws. We still have 800, 1,000 people, households that want to get into this type of thing, but it's just prohibitive for these reasons. And so it helps arm us with information of kind of real market demand that the city is getting firsthand data on, and not just we're hearing from developers, and not that we're just hearing from studies that are done. Right? It's a very real-time market window that we're getting on that.
Yeah.
That's been very interesting for sure. Does that answer your question? Council Curtis? You can find all this on the city's website, and I'm happy to send it to you as well. It's kind of this little house picture where underneath it all is core services. So before we build housing or transportation, we also need to make sure that we're providing things like water and sewer and streets and those kinds of core services, electricity, and then all of those things are built kind of upon that in the house. So at least that's the idea. Yeah. What other questions can I answer for you? Either about kind of the council legislation or the state house? I can chat about that bill if you'd like to. I got it right here.
So I have maybe a general question. I remember when Harold talked a long time ago about the uncertainty of our budget given what's going on at the federal level, affecting the state level, affecting the local level. Have you seen anything recently that is raising any red flags on our budget?
Yes. So fortunately, the city is not, we do not have tremendous amounts of funding from the federal or state governments. We have funding for projects. So we have like big transportation money coming from federal funds. And so that's kind of what's at risk for the city of Longmont, are some of the transportation projects, sometimes public safety types of things. But for the most part, when we get grants for different things, it's for a project. It's not really for a person, and maybe for a service or something to that effect. So the direct effects are not terribly huge for us. Other communities like Boulder and Denver, for example, have taken large amounts of federal funds that are now they're in some real problems trying to keep them, folks employed. And then the other piece of it was the property tax. So last year, you may remember your property taxes went a little crazy. Well, then the state house came in, the state legislature came in and said, well, the locals can't keep all that. And so, they kind of created a false ceiling. And so the city, I think thanks to our very conservative finance department, said, we're not going to count on that as ongoing money. It's too uncertain. I mean, they were even having legislative sessions the week before we presented the budget last year about property taxes. And so we just counted that as one-time money, right? So, kind of like a little pot of we kept it actually as reserve in most cases. And so rather than saying, oh, we have this money, we can hire these people. So we didn't hire anybody. We did not consider it ongoing money. And now that bottom is falling out of those property taxes. And so for the city, we never added anybody because of it. So at this point, we're in a pretty good shape to not have to cut services and funding because of it. Other areas, City of Boulder, that is what they did. They counted on the property tax revenue. They have since let go all of their temp staff, as well as, I think, seasonals that are working with them and starting to cut programs. City of Denver, I think, has multi-million-dollar deficit, partially because of that, partially because of the federal and state funding. And so they're in the process of laying off folks and serious furloughs, like you have to take a month off unpaid as a city employee. So I feel like we're in, I don't want to say great position because it's not great, but we're certainly in a better position than most communities, I think, around us
Okay.
at this point. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and really our finance folks are tremendous.
We were hearing that last week. So I was at the Colorado Municipal League conference last week.
I heard more about what other cities are doing.
And we heard a lot of what other cities are doing, and also just some of the financial positions that they're in. And so generally, I felt like, oh, we're going to make out all right, relatively speaking. That doesn't mean things are going to be peachy rosy.
Yeah. My guess is that we
to use a technical term there.
Peachy rosy. Yeah, we probably won't have a lot of new services or new ads, would be my guess, if any, to the city's budget. But at the same time, I think we've done absolutely everything we can to avoid layoffs in every situation. For example, in COVID, most cities let go all of their temp and seasonal staff, and we put them to work making masks instead. I feel like that's the Longmont way, and so that's how we'll probably continue. Some of you were there, I think. But I feel like that's really, our dedication. We are at least 75% of our budget is employees, and so we want to make sure that we're treating them well, that there's certainty to their work. We also know that we're understaffed compared to other communities. That's also part of the Longmont way. And so, it's interesting that you're hearing that from other folks. We're seeing some 0% pay increases across the board, but other communities are still going at like 3 and 4%. Plus, we have collective bargaining for our public safety, so they have to get an increase. So for us to give some employees an increase and not the rest. Yeah.
Actually, I was hearing it less on the staffing side and more on the capital projects of what they were trying to do and then can't fill, or wondering if they have to fill other gaps instead.
Capital money. That can happen.
Yeah.
So Sandy, I just wanted to say that, as a Longmont resident, just watching the council and seeing someone like Jim Golden, and I know he's no longer there, he's retired, talk about we're not going to take advantage of this property tax, because it's not guaranteed. And knowing how conservative the city is just really kind of makes me feel good that we actually are here. So,
Thank you. I appreciate
kudos
that.
to you guys.
Yeah, Jim retared after 45 years of service for the city. He must have started when he was 10 because he looks great.
He was always so calm and never got ruffled. Yeah. Teresa's kind of the same.
I was going to say, you maybe not in front of the camera never got ruffled.
There we go. Okay.
But, so Teresa Malloy took his place as chief financial officer, and she has also been with the city over 20 years.
Yeah.
And we actually overlapped their two positions for about 6 months so that they could she could really learn how Jim, thinks through things. And of course, she was the budget manager before that. So I think we're in great hands. Yeah. Thanks for saying that, though. I appreciate that. I saw him last week. He looks awesome. He was exhausted from all the traveling he's doing. Okay.
Yeah. Retirement does that.
I heard.
Does
Any other
anybody-
questions I can ask?
Anybody else have any questions?
Ronnie, I'll send you this bill if you want to go ahead, this Act 1184, and if you want to forward it on to the team, that would be awesome.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you all for all of your work, because obviously as you take a look at what's happening with the demographics in Longmont, we are shifting, and the aging population continues to grow and grow, and to be able to have such an important voice in what's happening, I just really appreciate all the work and the time that you dedicate to this board. So, yeah.
Thanks, Sandy,
Thank
and
you.
thanks for being here. We
Yeah,
really
thank you.
appreciate your input.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions? Let me know. Kaylee, do you have a presentation? You do, right?
yeah.
All right, so better.
Just
Why don't you go ahead and set it up?
I'm gonna forward this to you.
So if you'll plug that and plug yours in, you should be good to go. Your battery, good on battery?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, speaking of tough retirements, Phil Greenwald is going to be retiring.
Really?
Really, really?
Next, I know.
He loves
Haley and I are.
I
know. See, wow, how that works.
These kids these days retiring so early.
I know. I know. He must have been 10 when he started too.
When is he retiring?
End of
July.
Wow.
You mean
Like
July?
this, like
This
this
July.
Just
Okay.
take over.
Like
You
this
know.
month. I posted the job. It's out there and it's posted. So if you know anyone,
Yeah, you looking?
go
Wow.
ahead and refer them, please.
Wow. Is Angstead still around?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
we've got a little while yet. Yeah.
It's not liking the presentation. It's just giving the.
Are you gonna leave right away? Because I have a question for you.
Otherwise, I can just
No.
present it non.
Hit escape real quick.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do?
Try clicking
Maybe
the
it's to do
Pixel
with the,
window, just at the top of here.
This one.
Right above the slide.
No, I'll have a button.
Let Kaylee do her fun.
Thanks again, Sandy.
Thank you all so much.
It's always good to hear what you can share with us, because we don't necessarily get
Yeah,
that.
it might just be my shoulder. I'm happy to just like
Just go ahead and leave it in. You want to just even just
zoom in.
widen the screen over here, make it bigger,
Actually, I just moved my mother here
which is you
from
want.
Michigan.
Did you?
She was so excited to come and see the senior center, so I'll be bringing her by soon.
You bet.
So, yeah,
Awesome.
Is
Let
she
Ronnie
living with
know.
you, or is she her own?
she got her own place.
Good.
Yes.
Good for her.
She was kind of like, I need my own place. We're like, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So she's 5 minutes from us, and she and I both used to work in a senior center in Michigan. So I said, just imagine our senior center, like times 1,000. That's the Longmont Senior Center. So she's excited to come by and visit.
Good,
So
good.
I'm sure she'll come by soon. Yeah.
Good. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thanks,
So
Andy.
we have, so Kaylee and Phil were going to tag team, but Phil emailed and said that he got pulled into another meeting. And so Kaylee's going to lead the charge.
Yeah. Great. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all again. For those I haven't met, my name is Kaylee. I'm a transportation planner with the city under Phil's team for the next month before he retires. So just got a couple of transportation updates for you all. Sorry, the presentation format isn't working super well, so I will just go through this like this. Hopefully you all can see it. If not, I'm happy to send it to Ronnie afterwards so that you all can take a better look.
Can we shut the lights off too? That'll probably make it easier.
Oh, yeah. Great.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
So first update is about Ride Longmont. I think most of us in this room are familiar with the service, but if you're not or just need a refresher, the city does have a microtransit service that we have branded Ride Longmont. There's a photo of one of the vehicles there on the left on the screen. The vehicles are 7-passenger minivans. We have 6 of them in our fleet as well as 1 spare, so we do have a total of 7 vehicles in our fleet. It is an on-demand service. It goes curb to curb. It's not door to door unless you are a senior citizen or person with disabilities. Then the drivers are instructed to pick you up closer to your door. And you can go anywhere within the city of Longmont. So that map on the right shows the boundaries, as well as that little slice of pie right there is the mobility hub out on I-25 and 119 that will connect you to busing services that go down to Denver or Fort Collins. So we do kind of have that little mobility hub out there that this service does connect to. But other than that, there's no restrictions on where you can take the service. You can take it to grocery stores, medical appointments, friends and family, homes, work, anything that you might need a ride to. So here are some statistics since we launched. Just a reminder, we did launch the service on December 9th, 2024. The first month of service was free, and then starting on January 9th, you did have to pay for the service. As a reminder, that's $2 per person per ride, or $1 per person per ride if you are a student, senior, or person with disabilities. So since that launch on December 9th, we have had over 36,000 rides. So we are seeing about 5,000 to 6,000 rides per month is that average. And that we are looking at anywhere from about 150 to 250 rides that are per day on our peak days. Our peak days are during the week, and then on the weekends we are seeing a little bit of a slower demand, just as folks aren't taking it to work or they're not taking it to school, and we do have reduced hours on Sundays, so that does contribute a little bit to not having as many rides on the weekend. But I think our ride record was about 253 rides in a single day, if I'm remembering that correctly. So we are seeing that there is a very high demand for that service, and it is continuing. We do have 6,737 people that have created an account. And last time I checked, last month, it was about 1,000 active riders. So we are seeing that folks have created that account, and they're still coming back and taking those rides and using it. Since the launch, we are seeing about an 18-minute average wait time. So from the minute that you book the service on your smartphone or you call the call center and ask for a ride, the average has been 18 minutes. We recognize that that is a little bit over what we originally wanted the wait time to be. We originally wanted the wait time to be 15 minutes or less, but just due to the popularity and demand, we have seen wait times increase there. So we are working on hopefully getting those wait times down. It just comes down to funding and budgeting and increasing the vehicles that we have. So we did just apply for more RTD partnership funding for the next round that goes from 2026 to 2029, and we bumped up the amount of funding that we asked for from that grant. So we're waiting to hear back, but I do think that'll be good news because I did give a presentation to RTD and it was well received. So hopefully we'll be able to continue the service, expand the fleet, and get those wait times down.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
At what point can you not, at what point in the waiting period will it not let you book a ride? Because I've tried twice and it would not let me book a ride. And I called up and they said we can't because the waits are just so long. But that's been quite a while ago that I did that.
Yeah, and did you get a message saying like there's no availability? And that's a great question. I actually don't know the answer to that. I have heard of folks waiting up to like 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So if I had to take an educated guess, maybe 45 minutes to an hour, but I don't know for sure.
Has there been any discussion about being able to schedule a ride? Because I've had people that I've talked to that said, I can't rely on this for a doctor's appointment.
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
it's,
Yeah.
it's just too
Yeah,
much.
totally understand. So in that scenario, we've been asking people or advising people to schedule a ride ahead of time, either with VIA mobility services or RTD's Flex
They're
Ride.
different.
Since those services you are able to schedule ahead of time. So if you have something like a doctor's appointment or something where you need to get to, we've been asking people or advising them to use those services, just because at this time this is still an on-demand service. But of course that doesn't mean that maybe in the future we'll have that conversation about being able to schedule ahead of time. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yeah.
So the data that's been collected, has it been broken down to show age demographics? Like, out of those 6,700 accounts, how many are seniors, or those rides at 36,000 rides?
Yeah, great question. So we actually do not collect what we call PII, or personally identifiable information, and that's just because the operator doesn't collect that. So we don't have like socio-demographics about that, but the operator did put out a survey in March where I believe folks were able to input their age if they wanted to. So I think they have that data from March. I have not been able to see that data, but I actually recently asked them for that because I think it would be really great to be able to see kind of who is this service benefiting and who's taking advantage of it. I do have a slide about like the top pickup and drop-off locations.
Okay.
And so when we get to that, we can kind of see like there's a school that's a part of it. At one point, the senior center was a part of that list. So kind of going off of those, we can infer like our senior citizens and our high school students are a big demographic of the service, but I just don't have that raw data with me. Yeah, and so then the last 2 bullet points there are just about the ride time and distance. So on average, folks are taking about 2.5 miles and are in the vehicle for about 13 minutes. And so I broke these statistics up by month. So those statistics were from that kind of, what are we at, the 7 or 8 month since launch. This is just a snapshot of 1 month in May. We had, like I said, about that 6,000 rides. We had 896 active riders or individuals who make up those about 6,000 rides. In May, we did see a little bit higher than average wait times, about 20 minutes, but the average ride time was still in that 13-minute block. And then I got this question last time, so I wanted to make sure I addressed it. The average pickup location distance that you have to walk or roll to in May was 330 feet, so just a little bit over a football field. So here are the top drop-off and pickup locations for Ride Longmont, and this goes from March to June. So our operator looks at these locations on a quarterly basis. So they gave me the most recent data, which was from March to June. So here's are the top pickup locations. We have Walmart on Ute Highway, Avenir at Wyndham, which I believe is an apartment complex, and then King Supers is number 3 and number 4, Copper Peak Apartments, and then downtown. They did let me know that this pickup list is shorter because as you get past number 6 there, it becomes pretty evenly spread out throughout the city. So these were the top 6 pickup locations that folks were requesting a ride to get picked up from. As you can see, folks are really using the service to get to essential locations such as their place of residence or a grocery store or Walmart, which also has groceries, or just essential services. And then the drop-off locations, pretty similar in terms of Walmart, King Supers, Target, that same Avenir at Wyndham, but we also include Long's Peak Hospital. So it's great to see that folks are able to get to their medical appointments using this service. Also the medical offices on 15th Avenue, and then the last pickup or drop-off location there, Timberline PK through 8. So seeing that middle school students are also using this, or maybe teachers to get to work, things like that. And like I mentioned, one of the top locations when we looked at it from December to March was, I believe it was Skyline High School. So we're able to see that, schools being on the top pickup and drop-off list is a great indication that students are taking it as well as teachers. Any questions here? Mm-hmm.
It's funny that you mentioned the RTD Flex Ride. Have you guys looked at, because that's still operating in Longmont, right?
It is, yeah.
So have you looked to see how that compares in terms of, because that's a relatively similar price. That one is a relatively similar price, right? It's $2.75 or $3 a ride, I think.
Around there, yeah.
So have you looked to see kind of usage data between those two services?
No, but we actually just had a conversation with our city manager, Harold, about that yesterday, and kind of comparing even just like cost per, like an ROI of Ride Longmont versus the ROI of the Flex Ride, and seeing like at what point do we maybe take money and fund it and expand Ride Longmont if that service is outperforming, I should say, Flex Ride. So I don't have that data. I can request it from RTD. Sure. But yeah, it's a great point. We have been kind of having those conversations. Yeah.
So now that the little airport shuttle has shut down, what's the option of the possibility of this doing something like that?
Yeah, we actually just had that conversation yesterday as well with our city manager. He did bring that up, and he did ask the operator about that, exactly that. What is the capacity of the operator to maybe do a fixed route at certain times of the day to the airport? And they let us know that that's just something that they would have to talk about more internally and explore what that would look like, because we are definitely aware that that shuttle, I believe it was 8 Black, went out of business. And so, yeah, we're kind of exploring options if that looks like directly to the airport, or maybe being able to connect to a park and ride in Boulder, and that services the AB1. We're also looking at like a more regional picture of this and what that looks like if we can partner with our neighboring jurisdictions, such as like Erie, to get a shuttle that would go from like Longmont down to 287, maybe stop in Erie, and then go on to E470 to the airport. So we are having those conversations, and we're just not sure what that will look like right now. I will say that every time I get on the AB1 bus, that bus is packed, and these vehicles only have 7 passengers, so it would not be at the same capacity as like a large RTD bus or shuttle would be. So that's something we do just have to keep in mind, as well as the luggage capacity that was brought up yesterday in our conversation, that the 8 Black service had like a larger trunk for people to put their luggages in, where these vehicles wouldn't have that capacity.
Well, it's a
So
bigger vehicle.
yeah.
What one other option would be to just get a shuttle that would go down 287 to Broomfield, and then they could pick up the AB there.
Right, yeah.
And,
So connections to
so
those.
maybe that would keep it less people doing it on a regular basis and be able to shuttle the people.
Absolutely.
The challenge you'd have there is if you had 30 people coming down from Longmont, they don't have that kind of capacity on
Yeah,
each
I
of those
know.
buses, because the AB1 is usually close to capacity at that point.
We just need to take some 8 Black buses.
What's the route for AB1?
Have them give it to
So
us.
I believe it starts in downtown Boulder, and then it goes down to Table Mesa in Boulder, and then it goes down US 36, and then there's a stop off of Via Vara, and then it goes E470 to the airport.
Okay.
What's the time frame? Do you know?
For the AB1, I believe they run about once every hour on the
I
weekday.
mean, how long does it take if I got on here? How long would it take me?
If you got on from downtown Boulder Station, the first stop, I believe, someone correct me, a little over an hour.
It's, I think, 75 to 90 minutes, depending on the exact
Yeah.
time of day.
And I'll tell you, I ended up having to take it one time from the airport back here. I was surprised at how short it was. I was expecting it to be a lot more complicated, stopping off. And, it really was pretty quick and pretty much right to, I got into Boulder, and then I waited. They actually kept the L bus. They waited it, they called them ahead and said that somebody was going to be waiting for it. So
Great.
they kept it for me, and then I was able to jump on it and come home. So it was really shorter than I had expected.
Had you taken a bus from here to Boulder, or did you drive to Boulder?
I did not. I had gotten a ride to the airport. It was when I was coming back,
just
and
coming back.
all my transportation fell through.
Yeah.
So I ended up having to get my own
Okay.
thing, and I had lost. It had been later than the shuttles, so I was able to hop on the AB, get to Boulder, hop on the L, and get up here. So it was nice. I was very happy with it.
AB2 also?
I
There's an
believe,
AB1 and an AB2.
yeah, they might have just added the AB2 Express, or if they haven't, maybe there was in the past.
Because there's a
but-
faster one that goes to the work. Because when 8 Black quit, I was stuck in Alaska.
Were you really?
Oh.
I thought, how am I going to get home? I'll just take the bus to Boulder, and my son will bring me home.
It's amazing that there was a bus from Alaska all the way to Boulder.
It was amazing. Yeah.
How was the ride?
But they changed everything at the airport, because I always used to take it back to Boulder when I lived there. And it's not where it used to be. It was a little confusing now.
The bus?
Yeah.
You're right.
They
It's like
changed
off in a different area than
Yep.
the other
It's
transports are.
downstairs
Yeah.
now.
I almost, in fact, I missed it because I went running for it and it was pulling away, so I had to wait another hour to get
You sure did.
when I needed. And that's why they held the Longmont bus for me, because they said that, But yeah,
They saw you running.
yeah. And they took off anyway.
They took off.
Okay, great. Well, just wrapping up the Ride Longmont portion of the presentation, we have heard from our community that there has been some confusion about the naming between our local Via Mobility Services and our Ride Longmont by Via. So just to clarify, the Via Transportation is the third-party operator that runs, owns, and operates the Ride Longmont service. The city does not own or operate any of the vehicles directly. And so what we've done is we've created a slide like this. We have posted this on our social media. We are also going to post it in the Civic Center lobby TVs. And Harold has also asked us to do some more kind of in-depth outreach about the difference between Via Mobility Services and Ride Longmont. So here is a snapshot of what we have posted on social media, but really it's just comparing the two side by side. So Via Mobility Services, it's available throughout Boulder County, whereas Ride Longmont it's only available within the city of Longmont. Via Mobility Services is what we call that door-to-door service, which picks you up right in front of your place of residence, where Ride Longmont is what we call a corner-to-corner service, which means it'll pick you up at the nearest intersection or corner. Via Mobility Services is really for older adults and people with disabilities, where Ride Longmont service is for the general population. You just have to be 13 years or older to ride alone. Via Mobility Services, you can schedule in advance by calling or using their online portal. For Ride Longmont, it's really that on-demand, real-time ride, so you can't schedule ahead. And then the Via Mobility Service pricing difference versus our pricing difference, they are free this summer through August 31st, and it sounds like they are trying to extend that free fare throughout and make it permanent, so they're going to their board, it sounds like, to make that permanent. But this is just something we've been trying to get out there because we have heard from the community there is some confusion, so working together with our communications team and our social media to get the word out. And of course, if you all have ideas on how we can help kind of make sure that folks are aware of the two differences, I am always open to ideas and suggestions of how we can help folks understand the difference.
Well, do they still have Via on the Ride Longmont?
They do.
On there?
Yeah, so what you're seeing on the screen there is what is on the vehicle. So the Via is on the vehicle. It is pretty small, but it is still there, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Haley, I saw the Facebook post and it was very good. It was very informative and it really clearly said the difference. Mm-hmm. And I shared it to a bunch of Longmont sites so that,
great, thank you.
Could get out there. But I like that. I'm going to be using that when I do a presentation. Well, I just tell people what's going on at our community meeting. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to remind them about this because they get locked on things and they're like, wait a second, I always took Via and what's this new thing? And, and so, but it was an effective post.
Perfect, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're doing our best to really just refer to the service as Ride Longmont and not even say Via or by Via, just Ride Longmont and then Via Mobility Services. So that's what we're trying to do as well.
Mm-hmm. So just a minor little thing.
Uh-huh.
It says door-to-door service picks up you instead of you up.
Oops, sorry. Thank you.
Arlene always catches all that stuff.
I have a question. I am a frequent rider of the ride, and it hasn't been perfect. It hasn't stopped me from. I've ridden up to 5 rides in a day.
Oh wow!
So, what kind of complaints are you getting from the general public?
Yeah, I would say one of the big challenges that we're hearing from the general public is those wait times. We have heard that folks will use the smartphone app and it'll say, 20-minute wait time, and then they'll be sitting there looking at their phone and it'll just keep going up and up and up. So we have heard that. Our operator is aware of that. That could be due just to unforeseen traffic circumstances, or maybe a pickup drop-off is taking longer than expected. So I would say wait times is a big challenge and feedback point that we get a lot from folks. At the beginning of the service, and I haven't heard this so much recently, but correct me if I'm wrong, we were getting folks a little bit concerned about the GPS routing, and folks saying, I was in a ride and it went to the right and it should have gone this way and I was confused and it took me on a weird route. I have not heard so much of those complaints recently, but it's still happening. Okay. That's good to know. I will let our operator know that because they use a GPS specific to their software that uses Google Maps and I believe some other mapping service. And
I've had to take me through alleys, through parking lots.
yeah, okay.
It doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, it's really pretty bizarre.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. I will let them know that. And then the other big feedback point that we've gotten is just confusion about pickup points, like where folks need to go in order to be picked up. Some miscommunications with the drivers, having to call the drivers and explain where they are. Is that still happening, or have you
Yes.
experienced that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a specific instance or anything that you can give me after this presentation, and I can give the operator feedback?
I had one where it said your vehicle has arrived, and my vehicle was not only there, they had canceled
Okay.
and not told me about it, so I was like 45 minutes walk away from where I needed to be.
Oh, geez. Okay. Okay. I will get with you after this presentation because.
Or I'll just send it to you.
Yeah, that would be great because what the operator asks for is they just ask for like specific instances. They'll ask for like the rider's name, and then they'll be able to go into their system and see the trips and like see the driver's route and kind of hopefully be able to understand what happened and fix any bugs there. So that's just why they ask for specific information. Perfect. Yeah.
I had a 7 a.m. appointment at Lawrence Peak Hospital that I started calling at 6, and the message I was getting was like they weren't open yet. The service was not open yet. I can't remember exactly what it said, but it did do that. So it got to the point where I drove to the hospital myself, left the car over there overnight because I couldn't, after the procedure, I couldn't drive. So I just did that, and then a friend of mine came and picked me up, and then the next day I went and got my car. But it was all day that I was getting these weird messages about not working yet or outside normal hours or something was going on. And I even thought I would sneak out later in the day after everything was done and go back and get my car. But I couldn't even do that. So the whole day there was this weird thing going on, and I looked at it like it was a weird thing. You know, it just looked like something where there was some glitch going on. But yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for that feedback. Do you happen to remember what date that was?
No,
or?
but I can look it up
Okay.
and let you know.
Yeah, because the messages you should be getting would just be like, sorry, the service is experiencing a very high demand, there's no availability. Like, that's the normal error message.
Right.
And then if you try to call it outside of service hours, it'll say, like, the service is not running at these hours. But if you're calling it during the day...
And it was an all-day thing. I mean, it was
Okay.
several times I tried back on it, and I found out that it just never really connected. So.
Okay. Yeah, if you could let me know the date.
I mean, I'm glad it wasn't a problem, so,
Yeah.
but I wanted to let you know.
Is there an easy way for people to report these types of situations?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Because it shouldn't have to come from like an
Right.
advisory board update
Yeah.
meeting for like our team to be able to understand like, hey, where are there like disconnects?
So you are able to call the phone number, and that is in the app or it's on the website. You're able to call that phone number. It's the same phone number that you would call to book a ride to report any issues. And then they also have an email that is on the website, and I can pull up here in a second. And you're more than welcome to email them at any time.
So that's via, right? To contact via. Ultimately,
Yes.
like,
Yes.
is there a way that we can have a Longmont point of contact too? Because I think one, some people feel like that's more responsive, and two, it gives us the data to be able to hold via accountable if needed.
Yeah, I'm always happy to take feedback and listen to the community. I just want folks to understand that I don't operate the service
Yeah.
directly, and so I think that gets a little bit confusing because I have had phone calls where people think that it's like me personally running the service, and I'm not able to help them like
Sure.
directly or right away. And then what I do is I just end up emailing that support line anyway. So I'm always happy to give out my email and help folks. Just know that like I don't always have a direct line into like, okay, this.
From an
Yeah.
in moment operational standpoint, I get that.
Yeah.
From a reporting an issue after
Yeah,
the fact,
absolutely.
like what Eric and Lonnie were just sharing.
Absolutely,
Like,
yeah.
it would be great when they could submit that to someone within
Yeah.
the city.
You're always able.
Yeah.
You're always welcome to email me, and if you don't have my email, I have business cards. I'm happy to pass out after this. So.
June 19th was
June
when
19th.
it happened.
Okay, so
If you
yeah.
want to mark that down or whatever.
Okay, great.
I could also send it to you.
Thank you. Okay, perfect. How are we doing on time? Should I just speed run through the rest of this? Or, okay, perfect. Any other questions on Ride Longmont before we head into other transportation projects? Okay, perfect. So just a couple more really exciting updates and what's going on in our transportation department. I'll start off with the regional e-bike share program, which is what I'm currently working on. So the city did receive a grant from the Colorado Energy Office for $1.5 million to implement a docked electric bike share program. We are working on this in conjunction with our neighboring jurisdictions. So there, I believe, is a total of 6 or 7 of us. We are working with Louisville, Lafayette, Broomfield, Westminster, and Boulder County in order to implement this bike share program, with the idea being that you could take a bike from Longmont, ride down the newly constructed Colorado 119 bikeway path and get into Boulder, or you could ride it and get into Lafayette. You could ride it and take it to a bus stop, get on the bus, get down to Broomfield. So the idea here is that really that regional piece is that all of us would be able to connect into each other's systems. And so we are currently working together on this project. We, of course, do not have the bikes implemented yet. In terms of a time frame, we are looking at a bit of a challenge there, so the project has been delayed a little bit, but we are hoping by next summer to have bike share at least started and on the ground.
Where do you anticipate being able to pick up one of these bikes? Where would be like the main?
Yeah, so part of this grant is that we are actually required to go out to the community and get community feedback on where they would like to see those bike share stations. And then we also have to have the bike share stations in what we call like environmental justice areas, or communities, like disadvantaged communities. So a certain percentage of those bike share stations have to be in like low income and disadvantaged communities. So we haven't gotten that quite far in the process as to where the locations will be, but there are certain requirements we have to meet to that.
And I'll just add a conversation I'm actively exploring with staff on this is, I mean, once this gets operationalized, is can we make, to rapidly expand out the bike share infrastructure here, because the value of a bike share is only as great as the number of stations that are in your community to be able to drop off and pick up. Yeah. Otherwise, you're stuck with a bike. The whole point is to be able to basically check it out, check it in. And so as we have some additional developments that are coming in, seeing if that can be added in as a piece of that development, so that when you do have slightly more dense buildings happening, we also have, a dock station of 20 bikes there that provide a service not just to the new residents moving in there, but to anyone who lives nearby. Okay. And also it takes some of the cars off the road from people who might need to make small trips from there too. So trying to tie it in there from like a kind of development pay to help pay the way to expand this on top of the grant.
Yeah. And then coordinating it with Boulder, let's say, so that if you're taking this thing in Boulder, you have a predictable place that's convenient, you can drop the bike off.
Yes. Yes, there's a system. The systems have to be the same.
Yes, I think that is, just to be candid, the challenge that we're dealing with right now, because as you'll see, Boulder is not listed as a part of one of these communities. They weren't a part of the grant because they have an existing bike share program. So we are actually actively kind of in the procurement conversations right now about what that'll look like. So that has added the delay to the project. And on top of that, Boulder is actually getting ready to go out to a request for proposal this upcoming spring 2026. So their vendor might change depending on who answers their RFP and who they go with. So we have been talking to Boulder. We are aware of that. We are hoping that it'll just be a fluid system and it'll connect to Boulder, but that is the conversation we're currently having right now.
If they're going out to RFP, why aren't they just joining ours?
Yes.
Not to like open any wounds or anything here.
Yeah, I
This is the first I'm hearing that they're actively going to RFP. I knew they had a system.
Yeah. So they're extending their contract because their contract is able to be extended. So they're extending their contract with B-Cycle until next summer, and then they're going out to RFP. And we did have a conversation with them about what a regional RFP might look like. I believe they are potentially exploring the idea of a hybrid system, docked and dockless, for their system. So I'm not quite sure what that looks like. For us, we only want docked. The grant initiative is only docked. So we just have to have a further conversation about that. Yeah, it's pretty complicated, but I'm happy to talk to you more about it afterwards. Okay, if there's no other questions on bike share, I can do some updates about new bus routes and the Colorado 119 Bus Rapid Transit project. In full disclosure, these were going to be Phil's slides, so I will do my best to get through them. But of course, if you have questions that I can't answer, I'm happy to relay those to Phil. So the Colorado 119 project, the diagonal highway between Boulder and Longmont, as I think most folks in the room are aware, is underway, is under construction right now. If you've driven on that highway, you definitely are aware of all the construction. But as a part of that project, in addition to the bike lane, will be bus improvements and bus rapid transit. So there will be bus lanes that signalize intersections along the diagonal highway, prioritizing buses so they'll be able to skip through traffic. Of course, the Kaufman Street mobility improvements does tie into this project as well, as we are all aware of the construction on Kaufman, but that is where like the BRT buses will stop and pick up folks. So there are bus pullouts being constructed on Kaufman Street, and then as a part of that, there'll also be improved transit stops in Boulder and Longmont in terms of bus stop amenities, bus shelters, bus seats and trash cans, all the improved amenities, lighting, things like that. And then there will be some new park and rides at the First and Main here in Longmont, and then near 287 and 66 in North Longmont. So those new kind of big park and rides or mobility hub type stops will be coming along online with this new bus rapid transit. And then, of course, as a part of this, there is intersection improvements slated for Hover and 119. This is really a CDOT-led project, but our engineers are working closely with CDOT on this project to increase the safety and capacity of this intersection. So the last I heard of this project was that the plan is to create an overpass on 119 going westward towards Boulder. So cars will be going up and over Hover. You will not be crossing an at grade. So I am not privy to these conversations as I'm not an engineer, but I'm happy to answer to the best of my abilities if you have questions on that. But just know that this project is being looked at, or this intersection is being looked at as a part of the broader 119 improvement project. And so with that, looking at the actual bus service, there will be a new, what we're calling diagonal flyer service. So the Bolt, which is currently going from Longmont to Boulder, will be renamed Diagonal Flyer 1, and it'll be the blue route. And then the current Route J will be replaced with what we're calling Diagonal Flyer 2, and that will be the orange route. And so there is a lot of in-depth information and presentations on RTD's website. I have linked the hyperlink right there, but if you just go in and search RTD Colorado 119 Bus Rapid Transit, it'll show up there. And what you'll see is this here, and I apologize, it is hard to see, but this shows those new bus routes. So you'll see here the blue pattern. It's kind of hard to see, but the blue pattern is expected to have like a small detour until the construction on Boston is complete, but it'll be going from Boulder to Longmont, and as you'll see, Diagonal Flyer 1 and Diagonal Flyer 2 here, including those new park and ride stops at First and Main, and then further north. And so when we say the park and ride at First and Main, we're really looking at this new, what we're calling big mobility hub. So this is not something that I have been working on, but something that Phil has definitely been working on, as well as our land use folks. But looking at kind of developing the First and Main area into this big mixed-use multimodal mobility hub where the new bus rapid transit will pull into and pick folks up. There'll be some parking, and as you'll see here, Phil kind of it's kind of hard to see here, hopefully the future rail for Front Range Passenger Rail and Northwest Rail will kind of go and go by this First and Main mobility hub. Of course, that is a little bit a ways away, but hoping that happens eventually. But here's kind of a rendition of hopefully what that new First and Main Mobility Hub will look like. Any questions on the new bus routes or mobility hub?
When is that supposed to start?
Yeah, so I believe it is in 2027 they come online.
Yeah, that'll be when the 119 project wraps up.
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
So there will be a new stop in Boulder? It won't be the same one that's there now?
Yeah, so they've kind of rerouted and stopped. I don't have a photo of what the stops in Boulder will look like. This is just what the stops in Longmont will be.
Okay, where's Park Ridge?
So it's up here.
Oh,
further
okay.
north. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Like I said, there's some really good information on RTD's website. So if you do have further questions or want to look at more presentations or recordings, they have those all uploaded on RTD's website. But we're really excited about Bus Rapid Transit. I think it'll go great with the Kaufman Street mobility improvements, and then when 119 is done and we have bike share, hopefully, you know, all these things are working together to really improve our transit system as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, just a quick update on the Kaufman Street updates. Phil just added some more recent photos of what the construction looks like today. So here on the right is an example of a protected intersection that is under construction on Kaufman Street. And then on the left is a rendering of what that will look like when the construction is all completed. So just some updates. If you are not aware, we do have like real-time updates on our website, or I guess I should say most recent updates on our website, the City of Longmont. But the traffic in the southbound lanes will be closed between 2nd and 3rd until early this fall. And traffic will only be able to travel northbound currently, so you can't go southbound on Kaufman as they're working on it. Most of the roadway construction is scheduled to be complete later this year, but the full project completion is slated to be completed by early next year. And that concludes all the updates we have. Are there any other questions I can help answer? Yeah.
Can you go back to the picture of the Kaufman Street?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So either I'm an extremely bad driver or something, okay? But when you're going north and you're turning right there on Longs Peak,
Yeah.
if there's a vehicle in the lane to turn going south from Longs Peak, you're going to hit that curb.
It's
I know-
tricky.
Yeah, I know that there's nothing you can do there, but I'm thinking when you do 21st and you're modeling it after this, can we make sure that we fix it so that we can get around the corner a little bit better?
Yeah, so those curves are actually specifically designed to slow vehicles down, and so that you
Stop racing. Stop
No,
racing around.
I understand where you're coming from. It is a big change. It is hard not to hit these. They're what we call curb bulb outs. They bulb out into
That
the
definitely
street.
does.
But they
do.
are designed to protect the pedestrians and bicyclists and force you to really slow down and look around and make sure you're not hitting the curb. So that has been designed like that on purpose by our engineers. So I'm so sorry for the bad news.
You're gonna have to stop hot rodding around Longmont.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, 60 miles an hour around the corner is, minor detail.
You might have to hit
even
40.
on like 9th of Maine where, what is it, Casa Bandinas is?
Yeah.
So you go there and they just pushed it out a little bit too because I've been
Yeah.
noticing it on.
I do get
Yeah.
But it's only if there's somebody in this lane, you're going around here and they're here and wanting to turn, that you don't want to hit them, so you hit the curb instead.
I just want to say I lived there, and when we first started seeing the construction, I was like calling it the concrete jungle because everything was concrete and everything was sidewalk. But as I'm using it, I get that people are slowing down, and that's a good thing. I've said this for a long time. They prioritize speeding cars up in Longmont for a long time, getting them up the feeder roads and things like that. And now what they need to do is slow things down. Let people know that this is a city with neighborhoods and things like that, and they need to drive slower. So this does that. And I was surprised that there were only 2 lanes, I mean, just 2 lanes on Kaufman, but I get it now because there's good parking on either side. There's places for bikes to be off the road, and then there's places for people to walk. So as I first saw it, I was kind of against it, but now I'm seeing how it's playing out, and it really does a great job of slowing traffic down. And I think that should be our priority now, is to make people know that they have to drive slower. They don't have an option to speed up and go fast.
I'll have to tell Phil that you said that. I think that'll make his month because, as you can imagine,
we get a
he's
testimonial
only
on that?
gotten negative feedback from this project, so it's always
Tell them
so
he could
nice.
watch the campaign.
You know,
Yeah.
Finally
if,
retire.
Yeah, it's a fascinating intersection.
if I can add one thing, you know, we're so used to, like for decades and decades of road infrastructure, we're so used to it being built and then using signage and other speed controls to tell us what to do as drivers.
Yeah.
Right.
This is probably the most tangible example many of you have experienced of where the design itself of the infrastructure is trying to curb, pardon the pun, behavior here.
Yeah.
Right? It's trying to shift our behavior without using speed enforcement tools, without using signage, and without relying on people to be like really great drivers.
Right.
So some people might have to slow down from 60 to 40 miles an hour when they're taking those turns, but that's by intent. And the infrastructure is trying to truly shape behavior in a way that makes us all safer, whether
Right.
you're walking, biking, or driving. So hopefully, like as you experience that, think about just like this is it's going to feel like almost a culture change,
Yeah.
just because of the design is shifting something within you.
But what it's going to do to safety on the streets is going to be fabulous. I mean, even downtown, people are going to feel like they're safer to
That's the
walk.
hope.
And people are getting used to slowing down, and that's what we need to do. Around schools and things like that. We just need to get people to slow down. And that, working with Kaufman Street, walking up and down twice a day with my dog, I really get a chance to see the effects of it. And I'm all for it. I think it's great.
Good, glad. I really appreciate that feedback.
PA transportation.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really did a good job.
Great.
You all did.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Kaylee.
Okay.
Thank you for covering Phil's portion as well.
Of course.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kaylee.
Of course.
Yeah, that was a lot.
I just turn the lights back on. Or Lisa, do you have
So
a
Lisa,
PowerPoint?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, good. I can just plug my computer in.
Plug in.
Yep.
Good, because I was having some
Yeah.
tech issues, so hopefully she can.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, thank you. That's a great idea.
We'll give a minute to get settled, but we do have Lisa Knobloch to provide an update for sustainability.
Thank you, Ronnie, for pronouncing my name correctly. Few people get that one.
I was a school teacher. I got all the names.
Oh, there you go. I don't know if you knew it's German for garlic, actually. So,
Is it really?
yeah, Knobloch is not the German pronunciation.
This
But,
was left in the computer, I think, from the
oh,
do you need the HDMI cord?
yeah, maybe. I don't know.
That's the power. I don't see the HDMI cord.
Okay, I do need power.
And I don't know how, but it got stuck in my computer.
Oh,
That sounds like
Okay.
Yeah.
So Arlene,
Okay,
you're just
actually-
going to have
Like I
to
said,
I might.
take that
I do have it on a
convertible and
flash
slow it
drive.
down.
Yeah, but Bonnie, when I was, when I was
One
a
time I did
teenager,
it.
we always drove fast.
I know,
Why
so
do I
did
have to slow
I.
down now?
Okay.
Another time.
So did I.
Hey,
I'm
Ronnie,
mindful.
sorry to bother you. I think we actually, can you log on to this, get this computer logged on, and I can just plug in a flash drive, because the
Growing
HDMI
into this,
cord is.
you at least have a chance one day.
It's not you.
Sorry.
No, okay.
When I lived on Pratt, I lived between fifth and sixth.
Would it be better here?
I would pull
Oh, no,
out of
you're
my
okay.
parking
Okay.
lot. I mean, I would pull out
Oh,
of my
never mind, the
driveway
password's
and
on
I'd
there,
start
sorry.
heading to work,
There's something-
and my neighbor would be like,
Yeah.
because I would be thinking about where I was going and what I had coming up as soon as I got up to the office, and my foot would just go more and more and more, and I was in a
Like
neighborhood,
Eric over here. Obviously,
it's
you
a
don't have
big
anything to say
world.
about it. However long it takes, it's
I'm talking about my own change from being a leadfoot to
But what if it,
realizing that it's okay.
so you don't really care when you get to the gym, right?
Well, the
I mean,
first time I hit that
if it's
curve,
an hour
You
after
did
the
hit
that, I
thought,
was like,
no
I'm
big deal,
going,
right?
okay,
We're still
there's
actually gonna
something
need
It's
different here.
that's the rest of my day.
Oh, because it
And
won't
he
go.
was watching the
Oh,
construction.
gotcha.
Here they come.
Okay.
Unless you don't care.
And it will give us less options to speed. I mean, it's not just telling us, it's not to speed. And I think that's a good
45
thing.
minutes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And within that time frame, it usually works.
What grades did you teach?
But I take it
Oh, wow.
And it works better times of day, right? So morning, noon.
early in the morning, works really well.
Midday, probably.
Midday,
It's a certain person.
Right.
What about
What's the
Yeah.
next date for the food giveaway?
before rush hour works.
Again?
Rush hour.
Yeah, like I said, people can very rarely pronounce
That's your
my
special
last
invitation.
name, so.
It's too
I thought last
Unless
time
you're
I was
baseball.
at 12.
For a buck.
That's where I used to get that a lot, maybe not as much
But I-
anymore.
I
Like,
was
I was gonna see if I could do
I don't even know, but
it.
yeah.
Allow me not to get another car. Not to get another car.
Yeah, that's 90s baseball. Like early.
Yeah, going back for a long time, those people's
Oh,
point of
we're actually going
reference.
there.
Yeah.
Can't do
That's
it.
fun.
Because I was doing music
say
at
you
Farm
need a
Market.
new
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I need an old car.
Well, then we'll all have to leave the food distribution and come down and listen to
Do you need
you.
some of these?
I do.
If
you come after.
Pennies on the dollar.
I know.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, I got offered one free.
Yeah, I play, I play 9
And
to
I
1.
said, nah,
Okay.
no, ranges.
We'll get cleaned up fast, and
Well, don't
anybody
you
who
get
wants
it
to
right?
go down.
Like my wife has one.
Actually, I technically do. I don't usually take one.
She's got a 2017. The ones before then only had
Play
like,
3-4 hours straight.
Yeah.
but this one has 150, and then they've got.
Take a break.
You just wanted me to come by? Say hi.
They were doing a lease at one time. on this
Only about
lease.
10 minutes away
I'll say
from the fairgrounds.
cool last name, like
From where you live, yeah?
Yeah.
Or from here,
Yeah.
yeah.
There you go, email.
So-
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, if I could take every turn at 60 miles an hour, I'd be fine.
There you go.
So you can do it Ireland
And
style.
that works.
I'll give you
Yeah,
the
there
route
you
to
go.
go. 6th Avenue would go
Thank you.
straight across to
I go
Bowen,
visit my daughter.
and then you hit.
Oh, nice.
Sorry everybody for that delay. Our cord broke, so we just had to real fast.
There's
No
5 of
problem.
each, is that enough?
That's
All right. Yeah, so thanks everyone. As I mentioned, I'm Lisa Knobloch. I'm the Sustainability Manager. I'm housed in our Department of Strategic Integration, which may or may not be familiar to you. Most of our department is focused on the internal support, helping the city do things more efficiently and drive our achievement of city council goals. So sustainability, we do a lot of internal focused work. We work with departments and work groups across the city, but we're also a bit of an anomaly in our department where we have a lot of external facing programs as well. So I think some of you may be familiar with some of my team members. Zach Lance, I know, has been doing a lot of engagement with the Senior Center and his venture group a couple of times. He wasn't available today, so I'm stepping in just to give you guys some updates on what we're doing. We always start with a bit of a refresher for folks on what sustainability is, because it's a big word that has a lot of connotations tied to it. Most folks think of it mostly around the environmental context, but we like to remind folks that there's actually 3 components of sustainability, which we look at kind of as lenses. So economic vitality, social equity, and environmental stewardship. And really we utilize all 3 of those aspects to try to find solutions and strategies and things like that to help create essentially a healthy and vibrant community that meets all of the needs of our present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs as well. So that is really what we are striving for. Our key sustainability targets that have been approved by our City Council is a reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions, a transition to 100% renewable electric energy by 2030, transitioning our fleet to alternative fuel vehicles 25% by 2025. We're redoing our data on that right now, so we'll have some better numbers on how close we are to that goal as we're redoing our inventory, and then also helping our community transition to zero emission vehicles, 30% by 2030 and 100% by 2050. We have relatively newly adopted waste diversion goals of 75% by 2030 and close to 100% by 2050. and then also a newly adopted water conservation goal of a 3% reduction per capita by 2030.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Regarding the switch to electric, which from an environmental standpoint I understand, but you've probably read some of the studies that have come out based on the Big Beautiful Bill and what that's going to do to electric prices. And it's pretty significant in certain states. I don't know about specifically Colorado, but the average consumer is going to be paying a lot more for electricity. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I will answer, and then I imagine Councilmember Popkin might also have some thoughts that he might want to share on that. I think one of the things, I cannot say because that is not complete yet and it's going through the process. I'm sure if it does pass, which I think we anticipate, we will have to do some more in-depth analysis. But given that Longmont is one of the co-owners of Platte River Power Authority, and we are well on our way to this transition to 100% renewable energy, we have a lot more control over that than a lot of other folks with different utility situations do. And we have been working on this path in particular and a diversification of our portfolio that allows us to manage some of those prices. I think there's other things that could come into play that I think we may not anticipate at this moment that could impact that, but that's my high level thought on that. And Matthew, I don't know if you want to add anything else in.
Yeah, I want to distinguish between two things. One, electric supply energy and electricity that you're using for appliances or fuel that you use for appliances. And so when we talk about gas versus electric appliances, there are incentives that are going away most likely from that legislation. But we were never, that goal was never focused on electrifying all of Longmont. Just to be clear on what we mean by that. So
you need more power generation.
This is solely focused on the power generation side of like when you flick a switch for electricity, what's the type of power that's fueling that. So I just wanted to make that distinction clear because we're working on, there are going to be code updates that are going to shift to new developments being built with more electric appliances in general, and at the same time more efficient appliances. And that's a really key piece of this is gas, there's sometimes a misconception that gas is cheaper per unit, which it is, than electricity. But when you look at the efficiency of the units and how it uses power, an efficient electric appliance versus even an efficient gas appliance, generally it's almost comparable in price currently once you factor in for the efficiency of the use. So when we get now to the 100% renewable electric supply by 2030, that's a goal. And look, based on the current plans from Platte River Power Authority, we're not going to hit 100% spot on. And that's always going to be because you're flexing to see what's the market doing, what technologies are commercialized by then. So, I would expect that we're probably getting to 80-85%. We might be a little slower as a result of some of the stuff that might happen from a cost standpoint. So then you're looking at 80% by 2030 and trying to phase into closer to 100% over the next decade after that. Based on what kind of
that last 10% is always
the last 10% is honestly the hardest thing. It's actually fairly easy to get from a utility standpoint from like 40% to 80%. The software, the technology, we have that exists. That last 10%, as Lisa knows full well, is definitely the hardest gap to fill in that. And so I would expect that there'll be some adjustments that'll be needed, whether it's to the goal or just in general to the operational strategy, following kind of how the market adjusts.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that answer your question? Thank you for that distinction, Councilmember Hopkin. I'm going to go into a couple of things, but just a reminder, if you all have not seen this platform yet, it's called the Longmont Indicators platform. I can make sure you have the link to this. It's the best place that you can go on. It's currently it has 5 plans. It has the sustainability plan, our climate action plan, Envision Longmont, our transportation roadmap, and our building electrification plan that speaks to some of what Councilmember Popkin just shared. And you can go on and you can see this is updated twice a year, so it has relatively up-to-date information on all of the things we're doing across those plans and what status each of those actions and all of our indicators of how well we're meeting the goals that were just mentioned. So this is a really great resource if you're ever curious about things that are happening in any of those areas, and we're continuing to add additional plans to this site as well. So I just wanted to flag that for you all as a resource. Our key sustainability priorities that we're working on in 2025, there are many. We have a whole laundry list of things, but these are the one of our high focus areas. The one that I'll be talking to you most about today is our extreme heat projects and outreach, given that it is July and we've seen a lot of heat already, as I'm sure you are well aware. Our universal recycling ordinance implementation, building code updates, which actually Councilmember Popkin just spoke to. That is something that is underway with my team, with building services, and with Longmont Power and Communications. We are looking at how do we continuously update our building codes to be as efficient as possible, and looking at that transition to electrifying appliances because of the indoor health impacts as well as our greenhouse gas emissions impacts. And we are doing cost analyses associated with that as well, so we can understand as we do that transition what are those potential cost increases or savings, as you said, like what is that comparison between existing codes and future codes. And then we're doing a lot of work around communications as well, and how do we do a better job coordinating and standardizing the way that we share about communication or about sustainability to our community. So I'll talk mostly about extreme heat. So extreme heat was has been identified as one of the most significant climate risks facing Longmont, in addition to flooding and potential increases in wildfire and a few other things that we see kind of more longer term, like drought. But there's also one of the reasons we're focusing on this in particular is there's a lot of effective actions at both the individual, the household, and the community level that we have a lot of control over, that the city is doing, and that we are also trying to support our residents and businesses in doing as well, so that we can adapt to and mitigate the impacts of extreme heat. Why does it matter? So first and foremost, extreme heat sometimes is referred to as the silent killer. It has significant health impacts, in addition to just actually folks that can die from extreme heat illness or heat exhaustion. It can exacerbate underlying health conditions. And so folks that have any underlying health conditions tend to be more vulnerable to extreme heat because it can make those things feel worse, and it can actually exacerbate those conditions. We also know that there's disproportionate vulnerability, so we know that some folks in our community have more resources or fewer resources to adapt as we are seeing a hotter climate. It increases our use of energy and water. As you know, we need to kick on the AC or cooling if we have it, and a lot of people do not have it, so that's an issue that we are facing. And it can exacerbate drought, runoff, wildfire, and ozone pollution. So ozone is also exacerbated by higher heat days because of the chemical conversion that happens there. It can affect infrastructure performance, and overall it can really affect our quality of life. So people's ability to just go about your day to day. You were talking about walking your dog twice a day, so people having to really adapt when they're outside, if they can adapt to that, and some people can't. And so we're just trying to make sure that we're understanding how heat is impacting our community and how we can make sure that we're keeping folks safe, as we're also doing all of the things that hopefully address climate change, which is increasing extreme heat. So one of the first things that we did was develop a climate risk and resilience mapping tool. This is an online tool where we can really understand on a neighborhood level what are the differences in terms of how folks may experience heat across our community. And it's a tool that staff and our community can use to help prioritize what are those solutions on a neighborhood basis. So that the city doesn't have endless resources, and we want to make sure that we're really using our resources in a strategic way that has the most impact for our community. What we found from that process is, again, extreme heat is one of the biggest climate-related threats to our community. Some of the studies that we're seeing is by 2050, it's predicted that more of half of our summer could be 95 degrees and hotter. Extreme cold events are likely to become less common, but they still are going to happen and still can have severe impacts. So we can't just forget about extreme cold, but we also have been dealing with that for a long time. So we have good processes in place to protect our community in those situations. Again, a worsen air quality, and flooding and fire events may become more common. But we also have a high adaptive capacity, which means we have a lot of resources in our community. We have a lot of programs. We have a lot of community cohesion, so connection amongst our neighbors and amongst our communities, and we really just want to look at how do we build that up. Oh yes, please go ahead.
That prediction by 2050, half the summer might be plus 95.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that prediction come from? Is that based on international type of calculations, or?
Yeah, that data came particularly from the Argonne National Lab. They have been working. It actually came out of AT&T commissioned them to do some really in-depth climate modeling because they were looking at how to protect their infrastructure. And then they found that it was so beneficial, they wanted that data to be available to everyone. So they worked with the Argonne National Lab to make that publicly available through a tool called their Climber tool. I'd be happy to share that information with you all so you could go on and see it. But it's through the Argonne National Lab is that data that's coming from.
I think the other one thing that's interesting is the average increase in nighttime temperature.
Yes, yeah. So historically speaking, one of the reasons why heat hasn't been as much of an issue for us is because we have the nighttime reprieve, whereas other communities, especially with higher humidity and stuff, they don't see that at night. And when you have the extended days of heat where people can't cool off, that's really when you start to see deaths and other health impacts. We are starting to see those higher nighttime temperatures, and so not getting as much of the reprieve as we have in the past. Absolutely.
You've got kind of a double whammy going on. The over 85 population is increasing at a faster rate than everybody else, and then with this combined with that increased population susceptible to extreme heat, that's going to be a major deal.
It is, yeah. That's why we are really looking at this. And I'll talk about some resources in just a minute. One of the things that's in progress is we're building out the map. We don't want it to just be filled with a bunch of data. We want people within our communities to tell their own stories about how they're experiencing climate impacts. And so the one we have currently is Senor Osvaldo, who many of you might be familiar with, and he shares his story about how he experiences heat in his apartment. And we're continuing to build out these stories so that we can really share people's experiences in their own words. So a lot of work that we've done to date. So we did our climate risk map. We did what's called a heat watch mapping project. So 2 years ago, we recruited volunteers. We worked with a consulting group that sent us sensors that we attached to people's vehicles. They drove predetermined routes 3 times throughout the day on a really hot summer day. And then they analyzed that data to show where there's differences in heat across our community. We then took that data and we did a lot of community outreach. We did a citywide survey to understand, again, people's experiences of heat. And then we held bilingual cooling solution workshops at high heat impacted neighborhoods to help folks, help us identify what are those community cooling solutions that people wanted to see in their neighborhoods. We had an interactive display here at the Senior Center. Zach from my team, as I mentioned, did a number of interviews specifically with older adults because we know older adults are really impacted or can be impacted by heat. And then we developed a heat action plan that we are currently working on implementing. And then now this year with ARPA funding, we are doing cooling solution implementation at Kensington, Lanyon, and Spangler Parks. So we're doing water features, we're doing shade structures, particularly over playgrounds. So in the summertime, kids can play, parents have cool places to hang out, and just, again, trying to make sure that people still have that quality of life as we're seeing these changes. And then moving forward, so one of the things I definitely wanted to share with you all today is that we have, through AT&T, actually, as I mentioned, they came to us to help do some mapping. And after we were done, they gave the Longmont Community Foundation $15,000 to support cooling work in Longmont. The need that we identified for that funding was indoor cooling for folks. And so because of what you just mentioned, we do have a lot of folks, particularly older folks, who live alone and who live in places that don't have cooling, because historically in Colorado, it hasn't been as much of a need. We have a lot of older housing stock. And so we are offering free window air conditioning units to folks this summer, as much as we can for that $15,000. we are doing a partnership with Cultivate. If y'all are familiar with them, they're an organization that serves older adults. So if there's folks over 60 that you know, either yourself or family members or friends or neighbors that are in need of indoor cooling, especially because they may be more impacted with health issues or whatnot, please feel free to reach out to us, or you can reach out directly to Cultivate. Yeah.
How are you communicating that?
This is just word of mouth through our community partners, because we're pretty limited on funding. If we do a broad promotion of it, it'll probably get eaten up pretty quickly. We'll do that for the next month or so, and then if it looks like we're not getting uptake, we'll work with folks to do more broad promotion. But right now, we're just working through those community partners. So we have Cultivate, Meals on Wheels, El Comite, our center, all of those folks to say, yeah, go ahead.
Have you done anything with the NGLA? I
want to say yes, but I would have to ask Zach about that, because I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But right now, it's just been, if you have folks that you know are susceptible to extreme heat and really need this. So we've already had a couple of folks come through some of those partner organizations. And it's not just for older adults, it's other folks as well. But if they are 60 plus, we're just going to send them to Cultivate. They have their Fix-It volunteers, and they'll just arrange the installation and all of that kind of stuff. So I wanted to make sure that folks are aware of that. And it's not conditional by any means, but it's also an opportunity for us to share with folks other programs that we have available that help with energy efficiency or utility bill assistance or any of those sorts of things. But our primary goal is to really make sure to get cooling to folks that really need it to stay safe in the heat. We're also doing this year a cooling tent at events. So that's been really successful. We have a misting tent, we have cold water, we have cooling towels, and people love it. And we're educating folks around the signs and symptoms of heat illness, and then getting people connected to resources as well. With that, we're also doing cooling solution voting. So we have a little voting kind of booth set up, and people can share with us what are the cooling solutions, whether it be planting trees or shade structures or indoor cooling or any of those sorts of things. And then again, working on the communications piece. So really trying to make sure, again, if any of you are from here, I grew up here, it was always like, it gets hot in the summer. We all know it gets hot in the summer. And so a lot of folks are not realizing that the risk that this is really starting to pose to our community, because it's always been hot here. And so we're just trying to make sure that folks know that this risk is increasing, and how to keep an eye out for what those signs and symptoms of heat illness are, so that we can keep ourselves and our community safe. One other thing that I'll just mention, because it might be pertinent to all, is the Universal Recycling Ordinance. That was an ordinance that our city council passed a couple of years ago, putting into place requirements for recycling service. So at this point in time, all businesses and all multifamily complexes should have recycling service available. If you all live in apartments and that is not available yet, please feel free to reach out to us, and we will work with your property owner, property manager to get that going. And then this year we have composting requirements for businesses that are specifically have food components of retail, so food businesses, hotels, breweries, that sort of thing. And then later on, we'll have requirements for landscaping companies to be composting their yard waste. Yeah.
Has the compliance with the commercial and multifamily property recycling requirements, have they been pretty good about that, or is that?
Yeah, so far as we know, we don't have active enforcement, so we don't have anyone that's going around checking every single building. We have our code enforcement folks that keep an eye out. What we'll see so far in the numbers, in our waste diversion numbers, we are seeing a dramatic increase in our waste diversion, which is telling us that for the most part it is working. I think if we start to see in a year or two that that's plateauing and we know it's not at the number it should be, then we'll know we need to do some further outreach around compliance. But so far it seems like it, yes. We do have an exemption process. We have about 60 businesses that have applied for an exemption. About half of those is mostly because they were already doing recycling, like a shared recycling service with another business or something. So we've had relatively few requests for exemptions, so most folks are doing it. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. And then a couple of opportunities to get involved. Next week we're having a Plastic-Free July event at the Longmont Museum on Wednesday the 9th from 6 to 7:30. We'll have a panel with folks talking about the issue of plastic pollution and what you can do to help mitigate plastic pollution. We're also always looking for volunteers at our cooling tent. So if folks are interested in volunteering with us, our next big event is Unity in the Community, and then we'll be doing Rhythm at Roosevelt. And we might be doing also the summer concert series with the museum as well. We're just kind of playing it by ear as far as volunteers and weather goes. And then we also have a newsletter, and I can send these slides to you all. Ronnie, I can send these to you if you want to send them out to folks afterwards, so you have some of these resources and stuff. But we have a newsletter that goes out every other month to just keeps folks in the loop on all the stuff we're doing, all the resources we have available. That's it. That's all I've got for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Questions?
There was on the wheel, we had the 3 sections. There was one on, I think there was one environmental.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any influence on the city using pesticides? And I was talking about this before the meeting. I tend to walk my dog through through Thompson Park a lot,
Yeah.
and I notice now they've got little flags in the ground that they've applied pesticides.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think that's not a real good thing to do. Is there any alternative to that?
Yeah, so we do work closely with our natural resources folks. The primary limitation for us on that is just staff capacity. So at least from what I've heard from them, we do have what's called an integrated pest management plan. And so our natural resources and our parks folks do a lot to minimize their application of pesticides. They've actually been using goats the last couple of years to manage weeds in certain areas. They are using some in other areas where otherwise we would have to use staff to essentially manually pull weeds and those sorts of things, and looking for organic options when we can. But that's definitely something I'm happy to share with our natural resources folks. I know they do their best to do that. It's more of a resource limitation.
Well, it's just kind of scary, right? Because
yeah, for sure.
Children, families with children that like to play in the park.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or in the creeks and stuff like that where there's runoff and everything. Yeah, for sure. But and that's definitely something is an ongoing conversation for us of how do we continually minimize and reduce our use of chemical-based pesticides and herbicides. Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if the city is doing anything to plant more trees. Trees would, provide shade.
Yeah.
Particularly maybe like along North Main. Or even looking at developers. Now, when you see developers with houses that have this much room between them, there's not much. I don't know how you put trees in, but that makes a lot of difference. You get some shade in the summer, which is going to cut down. So what are we doing there?
Yeah. So part of that climate risk map has a layer that looks particularly at tree canopy, and that is a big focus for us. And so we are working with our forestry folks on. In the last couple of years, they've been prioritizing tree giveaway programs in some of those neighborhoods that have been identified as having lower tree canopy, because that is one of the biggest impacts. Low tree canopy and high what's called impervious surface, so anything concrete, asphalt, like anything paved, that kind of stuff is what impacts that heat. So we are trying to hone in on those areas that we know through that heat mapping have higher instances of heat or a difference in that heat that people experience. So we have the tree giveaway program. This year we are working with Boulder County on tree planting this fall and a tree tending program. And so that's the other thing, is making sure that not only do we help plant trees in places that we can, but we're also helping folks plant trees on their own property and then maintain them, so making sure that they get established, and then especially folks that might have mobility issues or whatever, that we have 3 years of maintenance so that those trees get a really healthy start. Because a lot of things, even though we see is, folks will plant a tree and then it doesn't make it through the first couple years. And then we are looking particularly at North Main and what are opportunities that we can tie in with our planning folks, as there's redevelopment happening along North Main, that we can incorporate trees into that process as well. So we are doing a number of things to increase our tree canopy. Emerald ash borer is another issue where we are treating the ash trees that we have, because we have a pretty significant number of them that are our mature shade trees. And then also we're looking at those more interim shade solutions like shade structures. Right. Kelly mentioned the bus stop improvements, so we're working with transportation folks on transportation corridors. So as people are trying to access transit, either waiting at bus stops or walking to bus stops, that there's enough shade to keep people safe from any kind of inclement weather, but heat in particular. As we know, trees are going to take a long time to grow and see those full benefits, so we're making sure we have some other interim solutions too. But if y'all are interested in trees, we do have our Arbor Day tree sale that happens every year, and other things as well. So please send folks our way and we can get people connected to information.
Do you have any ability to follow up on that? Do you have any ability to influence, maybe through city council code, where I'm driving this, as you said, canopy structures, right?
Yeah.
Which would provide immediately address it, right?
Right.
Yep.
I've noticed some of the complexes, or say new apartment or existing, they'll have like a concrete pad with a barbecue pit on it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
For the residents, but there's no shade,
Yeah.
right? So I didn't know if we could influence potentially in future projects to say, listen, if you're going to allocate a certain amount of your apartment complex to a socialization area or
Yeah.
a barbecue, you need to put up some shade. Right?
Yeah. That's a good suggestion. Yeah, we'll definitely look into that. We can look at code requirements and those sorts of things. Yeah. I know you have probably all some more business to attend to. I'm happy to answer questions, but I also want to leave you all time if there's other things on the agenda that you need to get to. So,
Anybody else have any more questions?
well, I'm always here. My team's here. Please feel free to reach out anytime. Yeah, thank you all.
Lisa, thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Appreciate it.
I just want to say that, does anybody have a hard stop of noon that they have to stop this meeting by? Okay.
But I can dip out.
Okay. Just because I think it's going to take a little bit longer over noon, and I think it's important that we hear from both Matt and Ronnie. Matt can go first since he does have to leave. But I don't think it'll be very much longer, but I would like to say that we'll probably extend the meeting a little bit, if everybody's okay with that. Okay? All right, then why don't we go ahead with Matt's report.
I think actually it's pretty simple. Last time I was here, in our last meeting, we asked if there's any flexibility on some of the Robert's Rules formality or the meeting format stuff. Unfortunately, no. Checked with legal. Unfortunately, no. But you're always welcome to invite people here. So, like when we get into can you go to other meetings? What's the Open Meetings Act stuff? If you're actually discussing relevant business, much safer to invite people here. So that they can participate within our format. You can still take the time you need to have an open discussion, but it's all by the book and being recorded there. So that would be the suggestion there. I know that's not doesn't make it any easier, but that's the
what we
clarity.
expected.
Yeah, that's the clarity that.
We figured that was going to be the way it went.
Yep. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's relevant for the board at this moment. I don't think so. We had the legislative update, we had the transportation update, we had the sustainability update.
Yeah, we had a lot of
how much more
information
I
today.
can add to that. No, I think in terms of the policies that we have, no, that's all I got.
Okay.
Think of something when we leave.
Right. One side note, Matt will be entertaining at the farmer's market from 9 to 1 on Saturday. So after our on the day of the food distribution, right? On the day of the next food distribution, then he'll be entertaining at the farmer's market. So I said jokingly that we'd all go down and say hi to him after we were finished with the distribution.
That was not policy direction.
That was side note.
That was just my excuse for not being able to join you for the next food giveaway. So apologies. So thank you all.
Okay. Ronnie, are you all set to give your report?
Yeah.
Do you want a minute, or are you all set?
I have it. It's just right here.
Okay. Thanks, Matt.
We had budget defense a few weeks back, and it went really well. But everything's under review right now. But I put forth a request for an additional bilingual resource specialist to help reduce our wait list for those supportive services. I also asked for funds to address our senior food security.
Can you expand on that a little bit? Food security.
Yeah, funds to address food security, so an opportunity for us to provide I want to collect data. It's an opportunity for us to provide food out of here one evening out of the weekday to see who we're serving and at what capacity to start collecting that data and that information. So I requested $16,000 for funds to provide that opportunity. That coupled with our food table, again, data. What can we get to show who we're serving, how we're serving, what the need is, to make a more formal request next year. Let's make that a more formal request the following year for 2027, based off of that data we'd be able to collect off of the one evening and the Saturday food table distribution. What could that be? We don't know. Depends on whatever data we collect, right? If we're seeing an increase over time from the very beginning through the whole year, then there's a need. We need more than one evening for an evening meal available, and we need more funds, right? So what could that be? We don't know. I want to just start collecting data to see what the need is for that evening coming out of here, out of the senior center specifically. Also requested funds for staff professional development. Right now we have a professional staff of 12 staff members, and we have $5,000 available for professional developments. We have members of our team who have to renew their professional licenses every year. And again, our field and industry, the needs are changing. It's just an opportunity for us to be with professionals in our field to see what we could do to enhance first of all, new skills we need to develop to enhance our professional practice, or bring into our professional practice to provide high quality and high level supports to our participants. So asked for an increase of $5,000 just to double that, so we have funds for our staff to attend professional development opportunities. So those are our three. I kept it very minimal. We heard Harold loud and clear in our advisory board meeting that budget's going to be very, very tight for the next few years, but those are three needs that I see right now that we can use for our staff and for our participants. Any questions on that? Any questions on that one?
Yes.
Yes.
The food. How do you collect information?
Information for what?
For the food security.
For my request?
Yeah, to decide if you're going to do it or not. You said you were going to collect.
So if they grant me my request for $16,000, then we would identify one weeknight here at the senior center to just kind of like we did the food table, advertise every Tuesday at 5 p.m. We'll have food available from 5
Would
to 6
it be the
p.m.
Longmont Food Rescue?
We don't know. With those funds, I'll have an opportunity to work with community partners. It could be Longmont Meals on Wheels. It could be a different one. It could be a catering company, right? But those funds allow us an opportunity to be able to seek that service, and so from there, we'll be able to track who's coming in, who's receiving.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So you're talking about an actual sit-down meal, right?
We don't know.
No,
We'll
you
see.
don't know. You don't
We'll
know.
see.
Oh.
We need money to even explore.
Right.
But can it be out of our location? Sure. Yes. Can it be in our cafeteria? Yes. Can it be a to-go option? Yes. So an opportunity is to be flexible to see what it is. What is the need? Is it I need the meal, but I have to go home and take care of whatever at home, family, pets, right? Transportation, does that play a role? And weather, right? So it's easy. It might be easier to come grab one and take it home, or right out of our facility as well. So don't know. An opportunity to us unpack if we get those funds to really say, okay, that we can start here with our advisory board. What do we recommend? What approach should we take? Right? Should it be a sit down? Should it be an opportunity to take it home? Should it be both? Because really, it depends on who our partners are too, though, right? So, just great opportunity for us to continue and expanding the work we're doing around food security, this group specifically. So we'll see what happens there. I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that.
Do we have cameras here? I'm just curious about that.
So
Inside or outside?
we have outdoor.
We do have outdoor cameras?
Yes, and that is actually on my next agenda for next month, is to seek feedback from our advisory board for indoor options.
Okay.
So we'll unpack that next
Okay.
board meeting.
And I have one last thing.
Yes,
Our group is called SCAB.
yes.
Could we get rid of the C?
You get to vote on whatever you'd like to vote on. So,
I mean,
let's-
SAB sounds better than SCAB.
could we throw that on the agenda?
Yeah.
We can add that to the agenda for
We'll
next.
put that for next month. We can all think about it and
Yeah, think about it, because there's, besides health and other issues that you consider with his scab,
Yes,
interesting.
that's right.
I know. When I first started using it, I was like, oh, is there any other way we can put this?
Yeah.
It just kind of wrong.
Yeah.
All right. Number 2, facility maintenance closure. We have just a reminder, our facility is going to be closed for maintenance July 21st through August 4th, resuming business on August 5th, Tuesday. So during that time, they are going to replace our carpet. So the carpet we have in here, they're going to replace it from the billiard room onto the back half of the building. So the back offices, the hallway, the billiard room, and rooms D and E. And then what they're also going to do is the paint that we have in this room, because the other rooms in the back half, same spaces, it's kind of like a green color. City changed their color palette, so they're going to be changing the walls to the white and replacing the carpet as well. So those are our big improvements. They're also going to kind of redo the gymnasium floor, so be able to put a new coat of finish on top of it. But those are just those are the big projects that are going to be taking place during closure during that time. So that's closure. Number 3, our fall go. Just want to update you where we're at. So our fall goes for September, December. Right now we're in our draft 1 edits. We already received all of our recommendations and proposals for that upcoming go cycle. And so everything's been submitted. It's in the draft 1 phase, and our goal is to have everything complete. Complete, so that way August 4th. August 4th. Copies will be available here at the Senior Center and then online as well, the digital version. And then that sets us up for August 11th being our fall programs registration day, and then August 20 for our fall trip registration lottery. Elder Exchange, we are set to take off next Wednesday, July 9th through 13th. Taking our 20 participants that were here for the March exchange, now going to the reservation. We have a fun agenda set up and planned. I had a meeting yesterday with Northern Arapahoe leadership. We're a bunch of fun things, but being able to really see the reservation, the land, the different spaces, touring. We're going to have a tour guide with us on one of the days. Another day we are going to the hot springs. We are going to be able to attend an evening powwow. So a lot of good stuff planned. A lot of great things for our participants to be excited about and for. And so that is July 9th, and we return Sunday the 13th.
So no rodeo, no.
What's that?
No rodeo this time?
Oh no, that was a different one. So that was the horse races that Northern Arapahoe hosted, and I think that was that like more in August, September?
I thought it was September.
Yeah. And so that's a good question. I think so. This year they normally host it. I think they took this year off as a host, and then they plan to pick up hosting the following year. So no rodeo this year, and it was fantastic. I really want to take a group up there for that one.
The relay races.
Yes, it was incredible. I did say rodeo, relay races. And so Longmont Public Media will be coming with us to cover part of the exchange. that part of the
Nice.
exchange. So we have, I'm working with Longmont public media representatives now to identify what days they'll be heading up and be able to cover everything. So a lot of fun stuff. From there, what they're going to do is pull together a video, right? Really telling the story from start to finish. The exchange here in Longmont, and then over at the reservation as well. So mixed in with some of our interviews that took place, and just really capturing and highlighting this exchange and story and the relationships between our two communities to share out with our community. So that's all happening here next week. That came fast. After that, we do have, I just want to update everybody where we're at for our 50th year celebration. So still working with our staff, we're identifying the structural pieces, for us as a facility, our staff availability, what approach we want to take for this, meaning, again, the skeletal pieces. So what days are we going to have events? At what rate? Is it going to be 2-3 a week? Is it going to be for 1 month? Are we going to celebrate for 3 months? Those kinds of things. So we are in the process now identifying those structural pieces. Once we have that structure, the skeletal structure in place, we are going to loop in a lot of our representatives. So we will create a committee from including our advisory board, our friends board, and some of our longtime participants. So some of our volunteer drop-in leaders, an opportunity for them to have a voice at the table for this one as well. So for this board, no decisions right now. I want you to all start thinking about who you want on that committee. We're looking for probably around 2-3. 3 would be good, but at least 2. So you all decide who you want that to be when we get to start planning. So we were looking at it, and the day the senior center open is November. What is it? November 17th. I have written down, I believe, in my notes.
1976.
1976. Yep. So we right now again we're looking at how or where we want to begin. Right? Do we want to start this in October and end with big events on the 17th? That type of thing. Take into consideration what we want to do, weather, those types of things. So once we have those skeletal structural pieces, we'll start looping in everybody.
And that's fall of 26.
Yes. That's
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So we have plenty of time.
Yeah.
To plan this one out. But, as we're learning, like for our elder exchanges, that sneaks up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So once I have that information, I'll share out. But again, this board start thinking about that. So that way, hopefully in August we can start identifying who the reps from this board would be. Based off of schedule availability, I know you're also busy everywhere doing everything, right? I wanted to provide some updates as well as the food table. I know we were kind of discussing it a little bit when I walked in. Am I still okay covered?
Are you still what?
The food table? Still covering the food table?
Yes.
Okay. And hey, where did my sheet go? Oh, here it is. All these papers. And so thanks to everybody who was able to be here to kick it off. So really want to say thank you to Eric, John Pillman, Lonnie. I know we had Councilmember Popkin and Yarbrough here as well, to support. Some key takeaways. Served 50 households. That's incredible. 750 pounds of food, and the breakdown for that was just fun stuff, fun statistics, right? 480 pounds of produce, 100 pounds of prepared deli food and meats, 95 pounds of bread, 50 pounds of meat, 25 pounds of desserts. Just want to share out as well. It sounds like there was within the first 20 minutes, 28 seniors households that came through the line. So that's very impactful. What else am I missing? So the next one is next week, and of course we won't be here for that. Some of us won't be here for that one as well because we have
It's the 12th.
The Elder Exchange. So those who are scheduled to work with, here to be here to support for that. Thank you. And any questions? I know, again, John, Eric, Lonnie. Does anybody want to share anything?
I just want to say Arlene was there too.
Arlene.
And she's the one that did the report, which
That's
I
fine.
kind of
That's what I said,
hijacked.
Sorry.
I hijacked from the email that she sent to everybody and submitted it because I wanted it in the record. what we said about the first day that we did it, so.
So one of the things that we've been asked is who would be willing to volunteer at the next one. Now I know I can help.
I can help.
I can.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can.
You can too? Okay, all right.
And you're working with Longmont Food Rescue to
You're
schedule
going-
that, correct?
You're going,
Yes.
okay.
Okay.
Well, that gives us 4, so that's
Yeah.
that's a nice group, yeah.
And you're able to connect with Longmont Food Rescue to organize that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
Well, the way that works is really kind of neat. The way it worked is that they were able to put food in the Meals on Wheels cooler
The night before.
overnight. So then they brought that out. And then she actually, because we had so many people go through, she actually had a second delivery of food. But she's going to have that much earlier than this last time. So,
Awesome.
yeah. She's very, very good,
Naomi?
Naomi.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah. She's
Yeah, she really has it together.
I just want to say I subsequently started helping them out with the produce in the park and the produce at the Y. And the cooler is up at the Y. They normally do it that morning. We would go up with cars, and when it's at the Y, we just bring it out to the parking lot. But when it's at the produce in the park, we load up the food from the cooler and bring it over to Collier Park. And we're able to use the coolers here, so she can bring it over on Friday, and then we only transport it from the food cooler right out here to the main area. So it's really convenient what we have here.
Yeah.
It really works out well for them. She also said that because of the fact that we did kind of run low early, and she was able to call for somebody to do a Costco run, and they ended up bringing a lot of food that were really needed because they were already prepared meals or already prepared something that only had to be heated up and things, and of course people really like that. So she has taken all that information, she's taken what she saw from being here, and she's determining what to bring the next time. So they're not going to wait until we run out. They're going to have things, they're going to have it early.
Yeah, she's
And
talking about moving
yeah.
the Costco run earlier.
early.
right,
Yeah.
she's going to do it before we even open. So we'll have all this stuff here, and that way we probably won't run out. Now, it worked out okay though, because when we were running low, there were only 2 people that had to wait until we got a new shipment, that we got that second shipment in. So it wasn't like people were really put off by it. They came in and they just waited, and then they continued on, and they were happy they waited until the new shipment, because there were more things involved in the new shipment than there had been before.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it really worked out well. I have to say, in my opinion, I think it was 100% successful.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
It was really good. There were no problems other than the little wait, and people were really happy to do it. What we found is people from St. Vrain Apartments were going home with their groceries and telling other people, and all of a sudden you're seeing people walking up together again, and people pulling up out in front again because they didn't know about it. So between, this is a good location. You've got St. Vrain Apartments, you've got Village on Main. There are elderly people who, I saw maybe 3 people from Village on Main, but we have our meeting tomorrow for the community meeting. I'm going to express it again and let everybody know, and, hopefully we'll be able to build it up. Now, we didn't keep it strictly to seniors because there was some people who came in that were families, but we felt they were also in need of food. They could definitely participate also. So, but I would say most of the people who participated were elderly people. So it really worked out well, I have to say. I give it a high grade because there were no problems, and Naomi is part of that because she's just got things where, everything, no matter where the location is, she knows what to do. She knows the process of putting it all out and stuff. And then Arlene was great with organizing it and, making sure people had their numbers so we knew how many people actually walked through.
I actually know how to count to 50.
Yeah. It's nice to be reassured by that. Huh?
Thank you for that data. That's huge. That's what we want to
Yeah.
see. Reflect those pieces to tell
Yeah,
the
the
story.
data actually came from her. I mean, but that was fascinating. So on another line, but one of the things that Naomi talked to me and Pina about last time at the meeting was she has gotten, and this is good to know because I just assumed that all the food came from somewhere. She has gotten a grant from the state to buy protein,
Right.
which means the meat was all purchased. The rest of the stuff came from some, was free pretty much. Her grant ran out the end of June, and so she asked if there's a way that we could maybe get some donations or support getting the protein for possibly up to 4 months, because she said she's going to apply for the grant again, but last year it was not given until November. So I'm just throwing this out here. If anybody thinks they would like to donate to it, there have been a couple of people already who've said we'll definitely donate to it. The meat went really fast, and people, they were allowed one thing of meat, and it's a pound. So I would like to see it expanded if we could to maybe cheese and milk and eggs if we can do that. But anyway, that's that. I'm just throwing that out there because she asked me to talk about that. So that's where that's at.
So we could do our own financial support of the table, huh?
Well, at least the protein part of it.
Right. That's
And
it.
if you're interested, get in touch with Naomi because the money's got to go to her. So yeah.
Those are all personal donations.
Pardon me?
Okay.
Those are all personal donations, right?
Yes.
Do you think, is it possible that the senior center has some funds? Okay.
No.
Never mind.
You don't have any slush funds at all?
Yeah.
I call it slush funds.
I would love to have some slush funds
I
available.
thought you might have some.
And so again, we worked really hard with the board and working with Longmont Food Share to really understand that we can't, as the senior center, this can't be programmatic, right?
Okay.
And so by utilizing funds for programs makes it become programmatic.
Okay.
So as for
Gotcha.
because those funds are identified for programs. So slush funds don't exist.
So there's no contingency
There's
fund.
no contingency fund.
Let me ask everybody, Cultivate, does everybody know what that organization is and what they do?
Mhm.
Yes.
I do not.
If anybody feels that we could benefit from having them come in to do a future meeting, to do a presentation, we can look at that. We can add them in maybe after the ones that we already have. Let me see. Where's the agenda? Here we go. It looks like we are kind of booked out until maybe September or October. They don't do a very long presentation. We have them at Village on Main a couple of times a year, and they don't do a very long one, but they do explain what they do. And it's important to know so you can refer people to the fact that they could call Cultivate.
Agree, yeah.
And I think it would be important for us to know it. So can we look into maybe September or October, adding them on?
Yep. And so that was Cultivate.
Cultivate. Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about, they want to bring up? I know we couldn't, can we do Friends? I mean, do you want to do a quick presentation on what's going on with Friends, or are you okay with leaving it the
I
way
got
it
like
is?
10 minutes, I can do it in a minute.
Okay, good.
There's a real effort in the Friends board right now to do planning for the next year or two. And I think Karen Roney is just the perfect person to try to get the planning done as far as where is the Friends group going? That is, where do they want to spend their money? That's going on. Also, there's a lady by the name of Donna Prestwood. I don't know how many of you know her.
Right.
She is very active in fundraising, and she is just gangbusters as far as trying to develop a new model for raising money for the Friends group. So you got those two things going on, and I think it's really important, whoever takes my position, that they really get into the planning process, try to insert themselves into the planning process, because there's some big stuff going on right there, and as far as maybe getting supplemental funds or support from that group, I think it's really important to try to blend ourselves into it. We got all the mechanisms that we need to do that right now. We have more levers with the city council than they do because of our charter role. But I do think it's important that whoever fills in behind me gets very active in that planning process. If I was going to stay, that's what I would do. And the next thing I'll say, this is my last meeting for several months at least. I have some medical issues I have to deal with, and so I'm going to be out of commission for a little while, and hopefully I'll be back maybe later this year. And so I just wanted to let you know.
Good luck, Dave.
Good luck.
Yeah. Whenever you're ready to come back, you just come back.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you're going through that, but hopefully it'll all come out okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be fine.
We'll be thinking of you.
Yeah, thanks.
We will.
So, Ronnie, can you explain this thing to us? Or at
Oh,
least
right.
me, I don't understand it. Or who is somebody explain this?
Oh, well, I saw it on Facebook. And so I added it to the packet. They're doing a farm to table that is being sponsored by Olin Farms, that is having a caterer come in and do it. They're using the the products from Olin Farms, and it is benefiting the senior center. Right?
So,
Why don't you take it
it's
from
a
here?
program. It's a trip that our participants are taking. So it's the date. Is it on there? The date on there? It's
Yes, the 12th. It's
yeah.
a sit down.
So it's an identified trip, same as it's advertised in our Go. If anybody was interested, they sign up for that program. There is a cost because again, it is a day trip, and there is a fee for Olin Farms. And then they go to the farm, and it sounds like there's a meal that's prepared on site from organic meal from the items that come from the farm. And so that's all it is. Yep, it's just it's one of our programs that we're offering.
Okay.
So, let me see if I understand this correct. They're doing this as to support the Longmont Senior Center Fund? No,
It's a day trip.
it's a day trip
Oh.
only. Okay,
Yeah.
so, okay, because I was trying to figure out why we were having to pay, but yet the money was cut.
Yep, day trip, driver, vehicle, ticket to get on property.
Okay,
All of it.
okay. All right.
I
Sounds like
didn't
fun.
realize that. When I read it on the Facebook, I was kind of like, oh, I thought they were supporting. I thought it said something about they were supporting. Okay.
One of the cool things that we offer, that's all.
Okay. It is cool.
See, you're cool.
Does anybody have anything else you want to bring up, you want to mention before we finish? Everybody all set? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Let's go.